Hey guys, so today we will be discussing some of the important tests that are asked repeatedly in various exams. So amongst these, first let us see this is the first one. Now what you can see here, we have got the fluorescein strips. So this is called as the fluorescein strip test. I think this is the simple test and everybody must have seen these fluorescein strips. This orange one is the fluorescein stain. Okay, we just instill few drops of antibiotic solution over this, and we just slightly touch it in the fornix and we ask the patient to blink the eye. So with the help of this fluorescein, we are able to actually stain the corneal abrasions. So whenever we have got the corneal abrasions, it can be superficial punctate keratitis, it can be various corneal ulcers. I think this is the most common staining method that you are using for the corneal ulcers, whether it is the dendritic pattern or the ring abscess, the multiple satellite lesions. You are able to see them, and how they look like, they appear greenish in color. Why they appear greenish in color? Because you are seeing them through the cobalt blue filter. So another question that could be asked, that how you are using the slit lamp to see them. We are using the cobalt blue filter. So when you are seeing through it, you are seeing the greenish lesions. That is why whenever you see the images of any ulcer, most of the time they look greenish in color. So you are using here, this is the one use. Then second use, you are using in the Goldman's applanation tonometer. When we are using this Goldman's applanation tonometer, what is happening? The probe is going anteriorly, and this probe is going and it is causing the flattening of the cornea. It is causing the flattening of this cornea. So this circular area of the contact, when it is touching the cornea, what is happening? This circular area of contact is coming and it is touching like this. Okay, so we are getting a circle. Now this circle is greenish in color. Why it is greenish? Because we are using the fluorescein stain. So it is something like this. But we know that this contains the biprism. Biprism means double prism. We have got the double prism here. So this will be splitted, and that is why we get two semicircles, something like these. These semicircles are called as the Myers. So with the help of this fluorescein stain, you are able to do this Goldman's applanation tonometry also. Then the third use, we also do the tear film breakup time. Tear film breakup time is also using this fluorescein stain. Let us see how. See, this is the tear film breakup time. What is actually this test? This test is testing the time between the complete blink. We ask the patient to blink completely and the appearance of first dry spot on the cornea. First complete blink and then appearance of the first dry spot on the cornea. And this we are doing after instilling the fluorescein stain, because you are not able to see the dry spot if you are not using any staining. So here also we are using the fluorescein staining. Again we will be looking through the cobalt blue filter, and when you are looking through this cobalt blue filter, you will be getting a greenish spot. Now why actually we get this spot? This spot is there because slowly and gradually the mucin component is losing. So basically, you know that we have got three components in our tear film. It is the mucin layer, then we have an aqueous layer, right, and then we have the lipid layer. So we have got the three layers. You can also remember it as a MAL. That is, we have mucin layer, then we have got the aqueous layer, and then we have got the lipid layer. So which component we are testing here? We are testing the mucin component here. So basically it takes about 15 to 35 seconds for this dry spot to appear. But if it is appearing very early, like if it is occurring less than 10 seconds, then I will say that it is unstable. Then I will say that this tear film is actually unstable. So whenever you want to check for the adequacy of the mucin component, then we use this test. Okay. Now see this. What is this? This is your Schirmer eye test. Now what is this? This is actually used for seeing the amount of the wetting. How much amount of wetting is taking place in order to make the diagnosis of the dry eyes. So basically this is for the diagnosis of the dry eyes, right? This is the Whatman. This is your Whatman 41 filter paper. This is the filter paper that we are using, and this is your 5 mm and its length is about 35 mm. It is like this. Okay, so can you see that we are inserting it on the inferior fornix, in the inferior fornix. Now I will tell you one more thing. Whenever we are inserting any strip on the lower side, it is L for L. Means if you are inserting in the lower lid, it is always towards the lateral side. So in the lower lid, we are inserting it at lateral 1/3 and the medial 2/3. Medial 2/3 and this lateral 1/3. We are using this Whatman filter paper. What you can do, suppose it is like this. We have got 5 mm here and we have got 35 mm here. Okay, so about 5 mm I can fold and I can put it here, and then you have to wait. You have to wait for 10 minutes and then you have to see how much amount of wetting is there. Okay, so ideally the wetting should be more than 15. So if you can see here, we have the calibrations and it should be more than 15. Now if you are having lesser, like for example, if I am having from 15 to 10, 10 to 5 or less than 5, it is like this. That means it is the keratoconjunctivitis sicca, and according to the numbers I can say it is mild, then it is moderate, and then it is severe. So we can diagnose the dry eye with the help of this Schirmer eye test, a very simple test and a simple grading. You can use it. Now see this. This is a very popular test and a very informative test. What is the name? It is the Wirth 4-dot test. So person sees 4 dots basically, that is why it is called as the 4-dot test. It is used for diplopia charting also, for monocular single vision also, like this. And we are also using the diplopia goggles along with this. These are called as the diplopia goggles. Now as you can see, on one side we have got the red color and on another side we have got the green color. So though we can use it interchangeably also, but as far as most common convention is concerned, right for red. So R for R, we are using the red part in front of the right eye and we are using the green part in front of the left eye. Okay, now suppose the person is normal, he is having the normal binocular single vision, right, with normal retinal correspondence. If he is having normal binocular single vision with a normal retinal correspondence, then the person will see 4 dots. 4 dots, how many? 2 green dots he will see, 1 red dot and 1 white dot. So if you are seeing 4 dots in the absence of any squint, with no squint, person is not seeing, is not having any squint, you cannot see any squint, and you are able to see all the 4 dots, you are seeing the 2 green, 1 red and 1 white, then I will say that it is normal. But suppose the person is seeing, this was the first possibility. The second possibility is that the person is seeing 4 dots with the manifest squint. Squint is there, but even in the presence of the squint, the person is seeing 4 dots. Now what is this? This means the person has abnormal retinal correspondence. Now this is an important concept. You should know what is this abnormal retinal correspondence. For understanding the abnormal retinal correspondence, you should first know what is normal retinal correspondence. So let us see what is it. Suppose these are the retina of the two eyes. Okay, these are the retina of the two eyes. This is the retina of the right eye, and this is the retina of the left eye. This is the fovea of the right eye, and this is the fovea of the left eye. Okay. Now what happens? Every point on the retinas are in perfect correspondence with each other. Means two corresponding points are always seeing simultaneously. So the image formed on this fovea and the image formed on this fovea will have simultaneous perception. When we have simultaneous perception, there will be fusion, and therefore we will have normal binocular single vision. And this is actually the concept of the binocular single vision. Whenever we see with both the eyes, even then we are able to see one single image. The reason is that they are seen simultaneously. What are the three grades of the binocular single vision? First is simultaneous perception, then is the fusion, and then we have got the third thing, that is your binocular single vision. Now what happens in the squint? The eye deviates. Now suppose this eye deviates, and because of the deviation, now what is happening? This fovea is coming to a new point here, right? This has come here. So what is now happening? Now this fovea is corresponding with a extrafoveal point, with this extrafoveal point. Okay, so what is happening? Normally only the corresponding points are in relationship with each other. So this point and this point was in relationship with each other. They were looking together simultaneously, and that is why they were able to fuse and they were able to give me the binocular single vision. Now what has happened? The other one has moved, one has gone. Okay, some other person has started living there. So this person thought that why not to introduce myself to this new person, so that we can again see together and have a binocular single vision, because now this is an extra foveal point with which it is corresponding. So what happens in cases of abnormal retinal correspondence? The extra foveal point and the fovea of the other eye develops a crude relationship, due to which they are able to give a crude kind of binocular single vision with the manifest squint. So even with the manifest squint, if the person is able to see all the four dots, that means a crude binocular single vision has developed due to this abnormal retinal correspondence, right? So this was about normal correspondence and the abnormal. Now what about the diplopia? How can I know that there is diplopia or there is a myopia suppression? So there can be suppression. If there is a right eye suppression, then the person will see the 3 green lights. While if there is a left eye suppression, then the person will see the 2 red light. Then there is a term called as alternating suppression. Now this is very easy. If I am saying that this is a alternating suppression, that means alternatively person will see 3 green, 2 red, 3 green, 2 red. But what about diplopia? So this means this is also seen, this is also seen. So finally we have the diplopia. If the person is having diplopia, he will see both, means 3 green plus 2 red. So finally he will be able to see the 5 lights. So normal person was seeing the 4 lights, while this diplopia person will see the 5 lights. So this is a beautiful concept where you can see normal correspondence, abnormal retinal correspondence, the suppressions, and even the diplopia. And then your all-time favorite, the Maddox rod. Okay, so again we will be trying to hunt this Maddox rod. First of all, what is Maddox rod? Maddox rod consists of these, can you see? These striations are there. So these are basically the cylinders, so which are kept parallel to each other. First, try to understand that what is Maddox rod. It consists of so many cylinders which are stacked one over the other, right? Second important thing, these cylinders, what they are doing basically, they convert the point source of light. They convert the point source of light into a red line, right, at perpendicular axis. Second important thing is that these cylinders are converting a point source of light. Patient will see a point source of light through the tangent scale like this, and when the patient is seeing through a point source of light through this hole, what is happening? That point source of light is converted into a red line. Now this red line will be seen perpendicular to its axis of the cylinders. So if the person is using the Maddox rod with the cylinders kept horizontal, then he will be seeing a vertical line, and if the person sees the Maddox rod with the vertical cylinders, then what will be there? The person will see the horizontal line. This is very, very important. Now, how you are using the Maddox rod to see the diplopia, when it is esophoria, when it is exophoria, when it is cross diplopia, when it is uncrossed diplopia, and how to get it. These are some of the important questions. You get the question like this, and we are always confused what to do. So first of all, I will tell you that what is the cross diplopia and what is uncrossed diplopia. Let's talk about the diplopia first, right? So if I talk about the diplopia, we have got cross diplopia, and then we have the uncrossed diplopia. The cross diplopia is found in the divergent squint. This is found in the divergent squint, while the uncrossed is found in the convergent squint, right? So I can say cross diplopia is found in the exo and the uncrossed is found in the eso. This is one thing. Second important thing is that what do you mean by crossed and what do you mean by uncrossed? See, if I am using the Maddox rod, now what is happening? The eye in front of which I am using the Maddox rod will start seeing a line, right? While the other eye is seeing a dot reflex, one eye is seeing a line. So by this we have created the dissimilar images. So once you have created the dissimilar images, obviously now there will be no simultaneous perception because there will be simultaneous perception, you can see it like this, but there will be no fusion, right? So what is happening? By creating the dissimilar images, we are stopping the fusion, we are breaking the fusion. So that is why even the latent squint will erupt. So one eye is seeing a dot and one eye is seeing a line. So there will be simultaneous perception if there is orthophoria. If there is orthophoria, there will be simultaneous perception. But if there is squint, what will happen? It will fall at an extrafoveal point. Now because it is falling at extrafoveal point, now there is no simultaneous perception, therefore no fusion, and the person will start seeing a dot and a line. So this the patient will tell you that from which eye he is seeing a line and which eye he is seeing a light reflex and what is the relationship between the two, whether he is seeing the false image on the same side or he is seeing it on the opposite side of the deviation. So what happens actually, suppose I take the example of the divergent squint. These are the two eyes, right? Now this is your normal eye and this eye is having the divergent squint, okay? So what is happening now? What is happening? Suppose I put the Maddox rod in front of this eye, right? So we have put it horizontally. We have to always put it parallel to the axis of deviation because there is a horizontal deviation. So I am putting the Maddox rod horizontally and therefore the line will be vertical. So this will be seeing a vertical line, while this eye, because it is not having any Maddox rod, will be seeing just a dot reflex. Okay. Now what is happening? This eye which is having the divergent squint, where will the image fall? It is falsely falling on the temporal retina. Because it is falling on the temporal retina because the eye is deviated outside. Okay, so therefore the image will be casting on the diagonally opposite field. So because the eye is deviated outward, it is stimulating the temporal retina, image will be formed in the nasal side. So this red line will be seen on the nasal side like this. So now can you see the deviation was this side and you are seeing the image on the opposite side, cross side. It is crossed. It has crossed this dot. So earlier it was like this. Now this line will be seen in the nasal field. See, the eye deviated outward. Now it is stimulating this temporal, means outer retina, and image is formed on the nasal side. Can you see my hand is crossed? My hand is crossed. Earlier it was on this side, on the right side of this light reflex. Now it has gone to the left side. Therefore it is called as crossed. So basically the meaning of crossed is this. This is the concept of the crossed. Now let us see the uncrossed. Suppose again we have got a person who is having the convergent squint. This one is the normal and this one is your convergent squint. We have put the Maddox rod in front of this eye again with the horizontal one, and the person starts seeing a vertical line while the other eye sees just a dot reflex, right? Now because this eye is deviated inside, so basically it will stimulate the nasal retina. It will stimulate the nasal retina. Nasal retina will form the image on the temporal side. So now the image is formed on the temporal side. So it is like this. So if my hand was like this eye was seeing a dot reflex and this eye was seeing a line, right? What is happening? It is deviated inward. It is stimulating this nasal retina. Nasal retina is forming the image on the temporal side. So my hand has not crossed. It has remained on the same side. So this is called as uncrossed. This is called as uncrossed diplopia, where the false image is formed on the same side, while in the crossed diplopia it was forming on the opposite side. So now we have understood that why we have uncrossed in ESO and why we have crossed in EXO. We have understood this. We have also understood that why we are getting diplopia, because there is no simultaneous perception, no fusion, breaking of the fusion, and diplopia is occurring. Now the problem is how to solve such kind of questions. We have learned that EXO means crossed diplopia and ESO means the uncrossed, right? But look here, they are saying here the image is formed on the same side and they are saying it is EXO, while here the image is formed on the other side and they are saying it is ESO. And so many people message me that is this wrong? No, actually this is not wrong. See, in the Maddox rod, we have got two views. One is the patient's view and one is the observer's view. So this is actually the patient's view, and when you see it from your side, you have to reverse it. So basically it is other way around. So if it is they are showing you on the same side, that means the patient will see on the opposite side. That is why this will come here. And when the patient is seeing on the opposite side, then you are seeing it on the same side. So that is why this will become the uncrossed. So always first you have to reverse it when such kind of questions and such kind of interpretation is given in the form of pics. But if they are saying in the question that the person is seeing the red line, right? In that case, if the people are saying that the patient is seeing the red line on the same side of the dot reflex, or the patient is seeing the red line on the opposite side of the dot reflex, then you have to take it as it is, right? But if they show you like this, then you have to reverse it and then you have to give your answer. And that is why most of the questions you are solving, you are getting the opposite answer. Okay. Now see this. Another important question, this also came in NEET 2019, that what is a test that we can do it. So can you see we have covered one eye. So this is actually the occluder. This is the occluder, and with the help of this occluder we can do the cover test, or we can do the cover uncover test. Then we have got one alternate cover test. We can do different kind of test. We have direct cover test, we have cover uncover test, and we have alternate cover test. Now if you see here, in cases of the direct cover test, this is also called as direct cover test. This is used for the manifest squint. When we have the manifest squint, squint is visible. Cover uncover is used for the latent squint, while alternate cover test is used for the alternate squint. When the patient is having the alternating squint, especially the divergent squint are very commonly found in the alternating eye. That is called as the alternate squint. Now let us try to know how we can distinguish this. Suppose the person is having the latent squint. You cannot see any squint, but we suspect the squint in the person. So how can you do this cover uncover test? So in that case, what you are going to do, we will cover one eye. Now mostly you people ask one question, that how we will come to know which eye to cover. So obviously in cases of the latent squint, we do not know which eye to cover because none of the eyes showing the squint, so you have to do it one by one. Okay, now what will happen under the cover? If the person is having the squint in this eye, then under the cover, the eye, the only looking eye, okay, becomes the fixating eye, right? And there is no simultaneous perception. As soon as you cover one eye, there is no simultaneous perception. Now because we are not having, there is no simultaneous perception, what is happening? No fusion. So fusion will be broken, and after the fusion is broken, diplopia will manifest. So this person's eye will now deviate. This person's eye will deviate, and this can deviate either in the ESO or it can deviate in the EXO. Under the cover, because we have broken the fusion, so under the cover, eye has either taken ESO or it has taken EXO. Obviously we are not able to see it because eye is covered, but it is taken. Now as soon as I uncover it, again there is simultaneous perception, again there will be fusion, and again this eye will come back to take its original position. So this is called as the recovery movement. This is called as the recovery movement. So this recovery movement is always in the opposite direction. Obviously if the squint had taken place in the outward direction like this, so it will now move inward to take its central fixation. So in cases of EXO, the recovery movement will be inward, while if it was ESO, the recovery movement will take outward to take its original position. In cases of ESO, it will move outward. In cases of EXO, it will move inward. So with the help of this cover uncover test, same procedure you can repeat on the next side also. We are able to diagnose whether there is some latent squint, and if there is a latent squint here, whether it was ESO or whether it was EXO. This is your cover uncover test. Now if you are doing it alternatively, then it is also called as the alternate cover test. Now how to do it on the manifest squint? The difference is that in cases of the manifest squint, what we are doing, suppose there is a manifest squint, this eye has deviated outward. In cases of the manifest squint, we are doing it on the normal eye. So you have to actually cover the normal looking eye. We have covered this. So this is what? This is your normal eye. Okay. Now as soon as you cover the normal eye, this eye has to move to take the central fixation. So if I have covered this eye and I can see some movement in the squint eye, it is moving inward or outward, that means that this eye was having squint. No movement means no squint. So this is the difference between the latent squint and the manifest squint. In the latent squint, you are covering one by one, while in cases of the manifest squint, you cover the normal looking eye. Okay. Now coming to this one. This is the duochrome test. This is the duochrome test. Now though it is not very popular, but sometimes they may ask you, so you should know. And basically it is based on chromatic aberration. It is based on the principle of the chromatic aberration. And even the colorblind people can do it. So it is not based on the colors, rather it is based on the chromatic aberrations. That is why it is even applicable for the colorblind people, so it's not a problem. So what is actually the principle? The principle is that if a person is emetropic, then he will see red one characters as well as these green characters equally sharp. He is able to see red characters on the red background and the characters on the green background equally sharp, not a problem. Now what happen if he is able to see the red more clear? Then that means the person is myopic, and if he is seeing green more clear, then the person is hypermetropic. So basically we are using it for the refinement of the spherical correction, refinement of the sphere. So you should know the name of the test. It is based on chromatic aberration. Even the colorblind people can do it. What if the red characters are more clear? Person is myopic, so give the minus power. And if the person is seeing green characters more clearly, that means person is hypermetropic. Give the plus power. Do the refinement of the spheres and bring it to that power where he is seeing both of them equally. So that will be the final point of neutralization. This is your duochrome test. Okay, now what are these? These are the cylinders. Can you see? These are the cylinders with the handles. So this is called as the Jackson cross cylinders. These are called as the Jackson cross cylinders. So this test which we are doing with the help of the Jackson cross cylinders, this is used for the power and the axis of the astigmatism. So this is for the cylindrical correction when we want to do the exact refinement and the power, calculate the exact power as well as axis of the cylindrical correction. Then we can use this Jackson cross cylinders, and this technique is called as the flip cross technique. This technique is called as the flip cross technique. Now what is actually this Jackson cross cylinder? It is a combination. Basically here we use a combination of the sphere and a cylinder. One is a sphere and one is the cylinder. And if you look at the power, then the power of the sphere is half of the cylinder and in opposite sign. So the power of the cylinder should be double the power of the sphere, or I can say power of the sphere should be half the power of the cylinder with the opposite sign. Like for example, if you take, for example, mostly we are using plus and minus 0.25, or we are using plus minus 0.50. So how we are able to make them? Suppose I am using plus 0.5 sphere, dioptric sphere, then I will use minus 1 diopter cylinder at 90 degree. So how will this act? Now because 0.5 is the sphere, so 0.5 will act here also and 0.5 will act here also, and minus 1 cylinder at 90 degrees. So power of the cylinder will always act at a perpendicular plane. So minus 1 cylinder is acting here. So ultimately you are left with plus 0.5 here and minus 0.5 here. So ultimately this spherocylindrical combination will give you two spheres of equal power with opposite sign, right? Okay, so this was your Jackson cross cylinders. Again, it is used for the power and the axis of the astigmatism. Flip cross technique, we are using a sphere and a cylinder, and the power of the cylinder is double the power of the sphere with the opposite sign. Now see this. What is this actually? This is your astigmatism Fenn test. This is called as the astigmatism Fenn test. This is again used similarly for the axis as well as the power of the astigmatism. And many of you must have seen that this is printed on the prescription papers also, which are given to you. Now can you see here, we have got like the rays of the sun. It is containing so many rays, like the rays of the sun, astigmatic fan, therefore it is called as. And these rays are at a distance of 10 degrees. So it is from 0, 20, 10, 20, 30, 40 and up to 180 at a difference of 10 degrees. It is flowing like a sun. So what we do, we ask the patient to see it from a distance of the 50 centimeter, right? And we calculate the best corrected visual acuity. We check the best corrected visual acuity and we take out the power of the astigmatism. Whatever you feel is the rough estimate of the power of the astigmatism, you have taken out. Now what you will do, you divide this power by 2. Divide the power by 2 and then add plus 0.5 dioptric sphere to it. So what we are doing, we are calculating the rough amount of the astigmatic power. We are dividing it by 2. For example, suppose I get the 1 diopter cylinder. So I will divide it by 2. So this becomes 0.5 and then again I add 0.5 sphere to it plus 1. So plus 0.5 diopter spherical I will add and I will do the fogging. And now I will do fogging of this eye with this. So what I am doing, because I am giving the plus spherical correction to it, I am making the eye myopic. So now it is changed into myopic astigmatism. So we will convert the eye into myopic astigmatism by giving this plus. So now images are formed in front of the retina. So with this fogging technique, again we will ask the person to read these lines. If he is having the astigmatism, then for sure he will see some lines to be more clearer, more bold, or having the brighter ink as compared to the others. So that will give you the estimate that in which particular axis he is having that astigmatism. Okay. So in some of the astigmatic fans, you will see this V pattern and these blocks also. So the funda is same, but this will become more complex. So we are not going into much details. Okay. Then we have got the stenopic slit. Stenopic slit is very common, and you have studied it very commonly for one test. I think everybody knows this, that we are doing that Finchem's test, right? We are doing the Finchem's stenopic test for the differentiation of the colored halos, whether it is due to the cataract or the acute congestive glaucoma. So apart from this, I think there are many uses, but they are not very actively used. Like it is used for the macular function test also. It can be used for best corrected visual acuity also, and then we can also differentiate the corneal opacity. If you are having the corneal opacity, then we can differentiate whether this is central or whether it is paracentral, whether this corneal opacity is central or it is paracentral. So we can use it for the visual acuity, even we can use it for the power as well as the axis of the astigmatism. And nowadays we are having so many things, like you have seen just now, the astigmatic fan is also there by this also, but we are using the Jackson cross cylinders very conveniently nowadays. By the handles we are using it, by the flip cross technique that we are using. Though we have got so many tests that you can do with the help of the slit test. So but the most active that we are doing nowadays is this Finchem's test. Okay, then one more thing. Now this is a very simple instrument, looks very simple, and this is just a pinhole, right? So pinhole test. So basically what is the funda of using this pinhole test? In order to see whether the decreased vision is due to the refractive error or not. That is the basic principle why we are using the pinhole. So if it is improving, if the person is seeing through the pinhole and there is a improvement in the visual acuity, that shows that there is a refractive error. That shows that there is a refractive error. So a quick method to find out whether there is a problem with the refraction or not. Suppose not improving, we are not getting any improvement and the person vision is not 6/6 and it is not improving also by doing this pinhole test. That means that there is some organic pathology. There is some organic pathology in the eye. That is why. While there is a third condition also where it is worsening. Suppose the person is seeing through the pinhole, the central area, and it is worsening. That means there is some problem in the center. So that represents that it is a macular pathology. That represents that it is a macular pathology. So this is a simple test where within seconds you will come to know that the person is having the refractive error or any organic pathology or the macular pathology. So that's all for today. If you like this session, please like, share and subscribe to my channel so that I can be motivated to like you people. I also want motivation, and your likes and subscribes always boost the people like us doing more of the videos. So in the comment section, please tell me what are the more topics that you would like me to discuss, any academic or any motivational ones, and also tell me that how was the session, and if you liked it, please like, share and subscribe. Thank you. Happy ophthalmology.